welcome to Ridiculously Happy Pplcast. I'm Sophia Levin, and today I'm here with Nikki Yo from the Ava Solution. How are you, Nikki?
I'm doing great, Sophia. Thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm not doing too badly, although there's some unexpected rain, and I'm supposed to have a session this evening.
Oh, no.
So I'm sure there will be some text messages after this recording. What about you? I understand you've been having some fun this morning.
Yeah, I took my two little girls out to the park with our big dog, and we had some nice picnics and some special treats and let them run it all out. So now they're sleeping quietly, which is a miracle in itself. So it's not too hot today, which has been a nice change.
I am not a fan of the heat. I'm definitely one of those people who sweats, so
yeah,
if we can avoid the heat as much as possible, I appreciate it. I also appreciate you running the kids out so that they are tired for this period of podcast recording.
It's always a win.
That's awesome. All right. I also hear you have some road construction.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they were supposed to be done mid-July, and they're still going, and I still have a nice sturdy lip across the road to the sidewalk, so that's been interesting to navigate, but hopefully they'll eventually wrap it up. I'm sure this will head into the fall, though. But
I take it there isn't a ditch in front of your house that you have to...
No, there was for a little while, and that was fun, trying to maneuver the stroller up and over, but now it's maybe like 3 inches or so not terrible, but no, it could be better.
I've always wondered when I see construction signs and it says local traffic only, and then you see like someone clearly can't drive their car into their own driveway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you want me to do
What
now?
do you do when that happens?
Oh, yeah. No, not good at all.
So what's new?
Oh, new. That's a good word. Mostly, I feel like my days are same old same, but I get to mix it up with different clients, which is always fun. This is new for me today, so that's exciting too. And other than that, the never-ending to-do list between managing Ava behind the scenes, not even just clients, and then house and kids stuff.
Yeah, the behind-the-scenes stuff is never ending for sure.
Yeah.
And you've probably noticed that I've been doing a lot of that lately as well.
Yeah, and it's great. I actually love that.
I'm getting a lot of organization done.
Awesome.
Especially when I should be taking time off, and instead I am like, I think I'm going to work on this because I can't sit still for very long.
That was great a couple weeks ago. I'm like, is she not supposed to be off? What are you doing?
And of course, recording a podcast is also a little bit new and possibly awkward in case people can't tell from our conversation so far.
A learning curve.
For sure. It's a good thing we're doing this over Zoom, because if we were not, having a conversation with a blank screen would be so awkward.
Yeah, that would be just pretending like you're talking to someone.
I've done that before. So if anyone has listened to this particular podcast before, I have recorded it on my own, and it just did not go the way that I wanted it to go previously, because it was just me reading. And I love those people who can record a podcast and talk as if they're having a conversation with another human being the person on the other side listening to the podcast. But that is not me. I would... for reals, just read what was on my screen, and it sounded like I was reading what was on my screen, and I didn't like it. So I put it away for a long time, and then I had an idea for what I wanted to do with this podcast, because I enjoy podcasting, and I asked you if you would co-host it with me, and you said yes, like right away. It took like no convincing, which is awesome.
I love it.
Because I think a lot of the topics that I want to cover in the podcast will be pretty applicable to what you do in your line of work, which we will talk more about in our first season of the podcast. And for those who are listening, this is our test episode. So we're figuring out how to record ourselves and where to put our microphones and also where the files are going to go when we stop recording the episode. But we do have a list of topics for our first season. So we're just going to discuss those in short to give everyone sort of an overview of what season 1 of Ridiculously Happy Pplcast will look like. So in our first episode, we're going to do a little bit of a what the heck is Ridiculously Happy People? And also some introductions of us. So that's why I'm kind of steering clear of it today, because we need to save some content for our first episode.
We sure do.
But do you want to give just a short overview of who you are and what you do in like maybe 60 seconds or less?
For sure. So I'm an administrative support specialist. I own my own business, co-founded with my business partner and sister. Basically, beginning of the pandemic, kind of what do I do now? So it was a great way to review my resume, figure out where my skills fit, and put the nail on the head there with administrative support. And I work with different clients and business owners, corporations, helping them get organized and maintain tasks that they just don't have the time for and don't necessarily need full-time staff to handle. So yeah, it's great.
Like me.
Yay, like you!
You do a lot of stuff for me. Like make phone calls, which is my least favorite thing to do ever. I hate it so much, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in our first episode. A little bit more about how much I hate phone calls. But yeah. And I am Sophia Lemon. I photograph ridiculously happy people, hence the podcast name. And so we will get into that ridiculously happy concept in our first episode. But basically, I specialize in working with people who hate having their photo taken. And the reason I can do that is because I, too, hate having my photo taken. So I know how painful it feels to stand in front of someone's camera. All right. Our second episode, I know you had some notes on this one. It's going to be about gratitude and mindfulness. What do you think about gratitude and mindfulness, Nikki?
Yeah, for me, it's very important, especially being a business owner and working from home, to maintain that self-awareness of what's really important in life. And there's a reason behind why I do what I do, and trying to keep that in perspective. It's really easy to get caught up with everything else and lose sight of the why with what you're doing. So just being grateful that I have the ability to lead such a flexible and varied schedule and be here for my family as needed and often, all the time. And it really is a privilege that I'm able to do this, and I'm grateful for that. And even on those hard days, trying to remind myself that this is why I do it, and that's the big perk and the win. Checking in with myself on a regular basis to make sure that I'm where I want myself to be, and that my business is moving in that direction and doing its goal of supporting my family in the way that I want it to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Gratitude's kind of a big deal. We're going to get way the heck into that, but being intentional about your gratitude and mindfulness practices day to day, and that does not mean keeping a gratitude journal or meditating or anything in particular, can have a rather significant impact on your mental health and ability to cope and all of that fun, delightful stuff, which could be kind of difficult, especially when you're, doing business alone, which we sort of both do. I mean, you're not day to day in the same room as your sister, and no. You and I are not day to day in the same place, although it almost feels like it because I WhatsApp you so much.
That's the perk of the internet and technology today, I'd say.
Yes, which we'll also talk about clients being maybe too text happy at some point in time. All right. We are also going to talk about self-image and the dangers of social media. And for me, this is something that comes up in what I do all the time, because most of the women in particular that I work with the first thing that they say to me when they book is that you have your work cut out for you because I am not photogenic. And that usually means that someone at some point in their life told them that they were not photogenic and they took that person seriously, and they really shouldn't have, because everyone photographs perfectly fine. It's just a matter of how you feel when you're being photographed. And I have some stories to this effect, but social media can really screw up how people see themselves, be it by looking at other people's photos or looking at photos of themselves. So we'll get into that. And I know that you also had some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, for me, the big one with social media is that imposter syndrome. Constantly comparing myself to other business owners, and as a stay-at-home mom too, battling that feeling of failure. And you'll see that perfectly curated image, and they have so much time and they're doing all these things right. And it's just trying to remember that social media is a highlight reel. It's not the play-by-play. You're not getting that color commentary from sun up to sundown. It is just the best of the best.
I would love to start posting screw-up photos on social media, just because I hate that so much. The highlight reel really screws people up. And yeah, I have stories about that too, about clients thinking that the accounts that they're looking at, their competition, they have it so together. And, you know, I woke up in the morning and took a photo of myself laying in bed without any makeup on, and I've had to tell them, well, actually, in that photo, they had a whole makeup team and a photographer, and it was perfectly lit, and that is not them when they wake up in the morning. But anyway, so I don't know if I told you this, Nikki, but the other day I had a shoot in Penetanguishene.
Okay.
And I got out of the car just as the clients were arriving and immediately got pooped on by a goose.
No!
I know!
Oh my goodness!
And so I'm wiping it with a Tim Hortons napkin, and just, it was like right on my chest area.
Oh,
so it kind of stuck out. And so I had to just be that person who was like, I just got pooped on by a goose, but I think that's really good news for your shoot.
That's great luck for you. So
yeah, for sure. And then I had to go about my day with goose poop on my shirt.
Like, no big deal. Oh, that's awful.
But I totally meant to take a picture of it and post it on social media, but totally forgot. So I might just have to fake it later or something like that. Oh my goodness. But the photos turned out excellent. So that's cool.
That's awesome.
Next thing we will go into, and something that can sort of happen as a result of the self-image and dangers of social media, is the mental health issues and coping strategies for dealing with all of these things. And yeah, I mean, I think we're almost having like a second pandemic of just depression and anxiety in every human being on the planet at the moment. What do you think about this topic?
It's so funny. My notes are literally like about coming off of the pandemic. So I totally agree with that. It's you've rolled out of this. It's like, okay, what do we do now? So for me, it's dealing with the stresses of owning a business and mixed with everyday life. And like, we both generally work from home, right? You're not necessarily exempt from that and working in a separate environment. So having to create those boundaries within your space and separation there. I try really hard to build time into my schedule to decompress after meetings that I feel like are going to be especially high strung and high emotion. Giving myself time to prep before meetings, having honest conversations with my partner about the support that I need for my business so that I can also meet the goals for our personal life and make sure that I'm showing up for our family in the way that I want to show up, but without neglecting my business at the same time. Allocating enough time to take care of myself that I can avoid those burnout times. And if I can't, then having that real conversation, even with my clients, to say, hey, Sophia, like I'm taking a mental health day and see you the day after, kind of thing. Yeah. And I'm fortunate enough that the people that I work with, like yourself, are very understanding of that and very upfront on the flip side with me too, when those things happen. So for me, that's another perk that I get to kind of handpick who I work with and make sure that there's that understanding going in that we're kind of all in the same boat here.
Unreasonable expectations of people are just not going to turn out well for anyone. So
No.
also, in the course of you and I working together, we have both taken mental health time. Oh my goodness. Because it's just exhausting. And I feel like transitioning back into, working every day has been a strange one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been like so busy and almost like everyone sort of forgot how to do it.
Yeah.
I think I did. I think I forgot how to do it. So those three topics will blend pretty well together, and we'll be asking for questions from listeners as well. There will be links in the podcast show notes where people can leave voice messages to ask us questions, and you can also follow us on social media at our own individual accounts, and also join us on our Facebook community, our Facebook group, Ridiculously Happy Pplcast, and can leave questions there. Also, we are going to be on YouTube, or if you are listening to this, we are currently on YouTube, so you can leave questions there. And I'm noticing that I have my hands waving all over the place, and I am in my studio, which has really old single pane factory windows that literally do not seal shut and don't have screens. So I constantly have flies zipping around all the time. So if you're wondering why my hands are waving around, it's because there's flies in here and they like me. Okay, moving on.
Those windows are beautiful, though.
They are beautiful. They're worth it. I will swat at flies for those windows. The next topic that I wanted to cover was having tough conversations, which, you might think is about having those conversations about mental health and stuff, but isn't necessarily. I feel like these days, especially through COVID, there was a lot of, content in the news and stress just about racial issues, LGBTQ plus issues, and especially in the communities that you and I find ourselves in, like southwestern Ontario, Canada. I've been hearing from a lot of people that they feel like they just can't talk about things. Like they're constantly worried that they're going to say the wrong thing. So my goal is to bring a guest in to chat about that particular topic, and that guest, to be direct, will not be white. So that we can get the other side of that conversation, because I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't always say the right thing and never will, because I am not omniscient, so I do not know everything. So that's going to be a fun conversation to have. I'm not sure if you had any notes on that particular topic, but yeah.
I didn't make any notes. I wasn't sure the direction we were headed there, but I agree with you. It's been an interesting climate, and I think it's conversations I've had within my household and with family and friends as well, to kind of like, what the heck is going on out there? Like, holy, it's been a lot of high emotions, and throughout the last 3 years, it's shifted my perspective of a lot of people that I viewed closely and thought, okay, that you were not the person that I thought you were. And that's been really interesting and made for very tough conversations with my partner, and to kind of say, okay, you know what, these are not people that I feel comfortable around our children, and those are not views that I want pushed on our children. So we're going to have to kind of put our hands up there and pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, because my perspective is you can't be expected to always know what to say to make the people around you feel comfortable, but you can be open to listening. So you can say the wrong thing and have someone react and not take it personally and just listen and learn and then form your own opinion. Like that is okay.
For sure.
So, preface, I want everyone to get a little bit of a thicker skin for this one and also be open to dialogue and to listening. All right, so another topic for season 1, which comes straight out of the networking organization that we have both been a part of, is recognition and acknowledging others, because I'm finding that I'm just a person who likes to get a little bit of recognition here and there. Like, you don't really think about it, but damn, it feels good. And so I've made it a part of my life, attempting to recognize people when they're doing things well, because I don't know that there's enough of that in the world, frankly.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that was something that stood out for me in that networking group, and I really appreciated it. It's just taking that time to show the appreciation to those that are around you, and to remember that the majority of us thrive on positive reinforcement. I mean, if you go about your everyday and it's, oh, okay, cool, yeah, that was nice, but a stop and a thank you so much for what you did, that made a big difference for me, or I just appreciate you putting time into XYZ. Like, the smallest little accolade can go such a long way in turning a bad day into a good day, and turning a so-so connection into a lasting connection. And I think that's huge. And something that takes, 30 seconds of your time.
For sure. And I will always remember the random dude on the street who complimented me on my sunglasses, and that made me feel nice. And then last but definitely not least, especially given the name of this topic, is family and priority management. And I just wanted to preface this short little conversation with why I picked this particular topic. And obviously family is a big deal in my line of work, because I work with a lot of families. And when I work with them, while they are generally ridiculously happy, they're also rather stressed, because trying to wrangle toddlers is, or can be, a stressful experience for parents. But I recently read Essentialism. Cannot remember the author's name at the moment, but I will remember it for the first episode. And it is just an excellent book. And within the first few chapters, he commented on the origin of the word priority, and that priority forever was a singular term. It was never priorities. It only became priorities like within the last 100 years or something ridiculous like that. And I thought, wow, okay. So we're always, coming up with priorities in life for ourselves, in business, whatever. What are our top priorities? And people will come up with 10 of them. And that's just too much. And I kind of want to push people to drill down on what their actual priority is. Because again, in my line of work, people put off family portraits over and over and over and over and over again because they don't have time, because they're going to hockey practice and dental appointments, and they have to work overtime. And it's just absurd, the amount of stuff that you have going on in order to manage a family, and all of those things that you do to manage your family take you away from spending quality time with your family. And if you ask any of these people what their number one priority in life is, they're probably going to tell you it's their family. So I find that a little bit ironic. I know you had thoughts on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, that's so funny you said that. It's like, I saw recently somewhere online, so true or false, who knows these days, but basically by the time you hit retirement age, that 65-ish age, that those first 4 years when your children are small ends up being like 3 or 4% of your working life. So, and for me, that it, again, when I'm talking about like perspective, like that puts it into perspective for me to say, okay, these days right now are super long. My daughters are 1 and 3. But to know that I can be here for them and be flexible and still financially show up for my family in the same way that I would if I wasn't at home, but I get that time with them that I will never get again. And that's a priority for me, is being able to be here with them and support them, and show up every single day for my kids. Everything that happens after that is the trickling and like the reason why I'm doing these things. So to be present and provide the attention to them while also providing to my business and fulfilling commitments to clients, it all kind of feeds into that one big reason of being a stay-at-home mom for me. I'm always upfront with my clients. You and I had this conversation like, hey, I'm also a stay-at-home mom. I think I was very pregnant at the time with my second. So, I mean, we knew there was another baby coming down the road. But I make that guarantee that I'm available during these hours, and anything outside of that, I work flex and it'll get done within the deadline. But yeah, first and foremost is my family. And I love that you made that comment about priority versus priorities, because how many times do we hear about shifting priorities and how many things take turns and you have to allot for different circumstances. So I think that's a really, really interesting point, that how many things can you really place at the very top of your list before it starts to slide.
Well, if you happen to have a look at my to-do list, you can put a lot of things at the top of your priority list, and then you're probably not going to get to any of them. So
Any of them.
yeah, for sure. And this podcast by no means is all about photography. Like, primarily it is not about photography, but this is, how I do get some insight into a lot of families' lives, and the number of families who will book with me and they will say, they're booking a photo session with their adult kids, and they're like, we haven't had family photos done since the kids were 8 years old. And it's like, you're lucky. Some bad things have not happened in that time, I hate to say, but
no, it's true.
Yeah. So that episode will be all about determining what your actual priorities are, and then figuring out how to focus more time on those things. Because life is not a rat race.
No, it is not. It shouldn't be.
Although that movie is awesome, if you have seen it.
It is a good one. I have seen it. It's an oldie but a goodie. Yeah.
Before we close off this episode, this preview episode, do you have anything else that you would like to share about where we are going with this podcast and you or life or anything?
I'm just really excited about this, actually. I love the idea of being able to cross all of these topics and reach out to people, and I'm looking forward to seeing questions coming in and how people are relating, or making that connection that I'm also dealing with that, and I'm also working through this in my own life or in my own business or my own family or whichever. I'd love to be able to hear all those different stories as well, and I'm just super excited to see where this can go.
Excellent. I guess I should say that this is not going to be a highlight reel to make everyone think that you and I have everything figured out, and that's why we are hosting a podcast, because that is not
Definitely
the case.
Not.
Nope, not at all. All right. So some other topics that we will be covering, obviously family, mental health, and all of that delightful stuff. We'll also be looking at some business strategies, ways to make running a small business or a side hustle or something like that a little bit more manageable, so that you're not driving yourself mad, which you absolutely could do if you decided to get into any of that. What else? I'm going to have a look at my notes here.
I think we were talking about boundary setting within yourself and with people around you and that kind of stuff, which is always used to, I've gotten really good at it lately. I'm very proud of myself for that. It used to be really tough for me to set and especially enforce boundaries, but it takes time.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because I feel like you haven't had to set very many boundaries with me, which makes me think that
I
I'm not
haven't.
asking too much of you.
You are not. No, not at all.
That's excellent. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So those are the topics that we're going to be covering. And I also want to do one season on wedding planning because, and not, traditional wedding planning because you could find all of that information on the internet if you would like to, but wedding planning for the people who want a wedding to look the way they want it to look instead of like the checklist that you find online with all the items that you need to do. Because newsflash, life is all about your own priorities and you can do it any way that you want to. All right.
Awesome.
Okay. Nikki, where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram at the Ava Solution, which stands for Authentic Virtual Assistants, if anyone didn't know. Also on Facebook under the same, the Ava Solution, and to make things super easy, also on the internet at theavasolution.com.
Excellent.
I'm all over the place.
Apparently. And very consistent with the branding.
Yes, have to be.
Branding, a topic for a future episode.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making time for this episode of Ridiculously Happy Pplcast. This is when I read the script, so you can tell. We hope that you feel a little bit inspired, a little like you want to live a little bit more kindly, more confidently, and more ridiculously happy. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your podcast app of choice. Your feedback means the world to us and helps spread this ridiculously happy movement. We also invite you to join our community on Facebook at Ridiculously Happy People. And remember that happiness is contagious. So who do you know who could use a smile? Share this podcast with them and bring a little extra sunshine into their day. And be sure to stay connected with us on social media. You can find me on Instagram at Ridiculously Happy People, on Facebook, and on Pinterest, and at sophialemon.com. And thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.